what I was going to say is, one thing that's interesting is different masters that is different German masters that were written after Litchten Hour patterned their teaching style off of Litchten Hour, which is very interesting because you don't see that with a whole lot of other texts. You start to see that again in later periods, so in Saber and Small Sword, because Angelo was so famous, everybody's like, hey, you know Angelo? Good. We're going to use most of Angelo's stuff as we move forward, right? Here, it was kind of like, okay, you understand the Litchten Hour tradition? Awesome. My moves are a little bit different, but we're going to use similar names and the same structure, right? We're just going to call them by different names, and it's basically the same thing. An excellent example is Johannes Lecuchner, who is famous for his Messer treatise, which he calls his recital on the Messer, right? It is based off of Litchten Hour's recital on the long sword and short sword, right? Short sword being the long sword used in half sword in armor, right? So the later half of that zettel, okay? So why am I bringing that up? Well, because we can't read Fiore like we read Litchten Hour, right? He has a different structure. He has a different way of saying things, which is extremely entertaining to me. And so I think that beyond that, we just need to jump into it. I like Fiore Dagger mainly for the reason that it is simple. That's one of the reasons why I like Fiore, is because he has a relatively simple system. It's basic, it's foundational, and so it is successful because there's not a lot of unnecessary flair, I guess. Whereas the German traditions, in their complexity, offer an extremely complete, vast system that elaborates on extra actions that essentially Fiore doesn't go into, right? Extra, in our case, not necessarily being unnecessary, right? I'm mostly talking about winds. Fiore does have winds, but he usually has single intention winds. In German, you can wind for days, and there are plays that tell you to wind through all 4 quarters, and if that doesn't work, keep going, right? So something to be aware of is there is a lot of German dagger, okay? Speaking of Gladiatoria has a dagger section, and it's good, and it is also basic. I like Fiore because it's well known, and it's simple enough that like anybody can understand the concepts to me. I don't suggest that people just dive into Meyer Dagger, which is another German dagger source, but it is literally like, well, it has winds. So that should probably help you understand my point there. So Meyer is complex. He has many actions per play, and another reason I like Fiore is it's just like, this is the thing, do it. This is how you stop it. Let's move on. Okay? So since we are into the structure of Fiore, we need to understand how he builds his system. He has a master remedy, so his master play, which is his introduction to this type of action. Okay? Then he will have a counter to the first remedy master. Okay? Then he has a student, or his first, I think it's, let's see. Man, I can't read upside down. It's his first, turn back. First student, and then countermaster to first student. So your system basically goes first remedy master. The first remedy master is his name for a play, okay? And then you will have countermaster to first remedy master, okay? Yeah, Mike is smiling because we went over this a few weeks ago, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. This is the only unsimple thing about Fiore, which is kind of frustrating. So then he'll have his first student, and then he'll have the countermaster to the first student. It continues on with your second student, countermaster to second student, etc., until you have the fourth. Yeah, you don't need to see it right now. I'm just explaining, and I need to reorient it. Then you have, I think it's the fourth student, and he's like, there's no counter to this because that's how amazing I am. And I'm like, there definitely are counters to that, dude. So let's get to it, shall we? Another thing that you need to know about Fiore, or a good starting point, is to understand that in German, especially in the KDF tradition, we look at the pictures, we learn from the pictures, but the info is in the text, right? It is, with your sword on your right shoulder, you cut into his upper left opening, etc. Fiore says, I'm the master, I'm freaking bitchin', I'm probably the best person to ever hold a sword in my hand, I stop this play with my left hand. That's like it. If you want to prove me wrong, somebody read this out loud. Can you guys see this well enough, or do we need to focus?
I can see it if you want me to read it.
All right, Matthew, please go ahead and read it.
It says, I'm the first master, and I'm called Remedy, because I know how to defend so well that you can't harm me. Whereas I, on the contrary, can strike you and hurt you. I can't make a better play against you than to make your dagger go to the ground by turning my hand to the left.
Okay, what instruction do we have in that paragraph?
Turn your hand to the left.
And be awesome.
And confidence. Confidence is extremely important. I'm not even joking, guys. Confidence in fencing is one of those things where it's like literally just fake it until you feel it, because if you are overly cautious, you'll never be able to actually move in. Okay, so let's talk about this. Because, as I said before, in German we have the text and sometimes the pictures will help, which is the frustrating thing. We have pictures and sometimes the text will help in Fiore, which is essentially it. I'm kind of making this into a joke, guys. I'm over-exaggerating a lot of these things, but really when you're interpreting, Fiore does a great job at showing very well what the individuals are doing. In Litchten Hour, it's very common to see like, and this is the tempo after you do the thing that I just discussed. And so it doesn't make sense. So Matthew read this, it's I'm awesome, I'm great, you can't hurt me, I can hurt you. Turn your hand to the left, I can stop you from hurting me. Okay? So the first thing that we need to look at, oh, and I have one more point to make. One thing that I absolutely love about Fiore that I really wish that the Germans had implemented is Fiore shows who is doing the play. And he does that with a crown that is colored gold, or he does it with a golden garter on the leg. Okay? And sometimes both, and sometimes other things, but generally he is going to indicate the person doing the play in gold. All right? Cool. So we're moving on. Let's look at this individual who we're going to call Fiore, but it can't be Fiore because he doesn't have a beard. He's got a crown on. How many daggers does he have in his hand?
0.
0. He is unarmed, right? So the first Remedy Master and its following plays are plays that you do unarmed against an armed attacking opponent. Okay? So most of these, well, the first Remedy Master, the first student, the second student, the third student, those are all going to be, this is how you stop somebody from killing you with a dagger when they're striking from this position. Okay? Ironically, the counter is, this is how you continue to kill this unarmed man. Don't let him stop you from following your dreams of murder. So, what can we determine from this position, from this picture? Okay? He says turning of the left hand. Okay? We know from a lot of sources that that basically means inverting, right? And we can test that against the picture. Does it look like his